Hello everyone, I am Keith Ornbaum, a solutions engineer with GeoMarvel. Today I will discuss how to deploy a single machine based deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise version 10.9.1. This video will explain what ArcGIS Enterprise is and why it's important, and explain the process of standing up ArcGIS Enterprise on a single machine deployment while also discussing the ArcGIS components, the ArcGIS server, the ArcGIS data store, the portal for ArcGIS, and the ArcGIS web adapter. ArcGIS Enterprise is a foundational software system for GIS, powering map visualization, analytics, and data management. It is the backbone for running the Esri suite of applications and your own custom applications. The four components of ArcGIS Enterprise work together to provide comprehensive functionality. Before we begin the ArcGIS Enterprise installation, we need to log into Esri and download each application. This can be completed by opening your browser and logging into Esri. Select the Downloads tab, then select all products and versions. Select the version you want to install. In this case, we want 10.9.1. And then select ArcGIS Enterprise. This will open the Downloads page that allows you to download the four components for ArcGIS Enterprise. Next, you will need to download your licenses for ArcGIS Server and Portal for ArcGIS. This can be completed in Esri by selecting Licensing, and then selecting the License Esri products. Now that you have downloaded the ArcGIS Enterprise applications, let's get started with installing the ArcGIS Enterprise components. We will be installing and configuring a single machine deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise, so we shouldn't need to change any of the defaults in the installation. Let's start with the ArcGIS Server application. This is the back-end server software component of ArcGIS Enterprise that makes your geographic information available to anyone with an internet connection. This is accomplished through GIS services, which allow a server computer to receive and process requests for information sent by other devices. Open the Downloads folder from the File Explorer and select the ArcGIS Server installation file. Select Close. Your Windows machine will ask you to allow this app to make changes to your device. Select Yes. Select Next. Select Next. Select I accept the master agreement and select Next. For the purposes of this install, I'm going to keep the default settings because we want to install the server onto the local C drive for the installation. Still, you can change the installation directory based on your business needs. Select Next. I'm going to keep the Python destination folder default, but you can change this to the location that meets your organizational needs, and select Next. ArcGIS Server starts and stops processes, reads and writes data to locations on the file system, and communicates between machines. To do these things securely, it uses an operating system account that you specify when you install ArcGIS Server. This is known as the ArcGIS Server account. The ArcGIS Server account is used for the following purposes: start and stop processes and support ArcGIS Server and services, read the GIS data behind your services when the registered database uses operating system authentication, read and write files to the ArcGIS Server directories. For example, when you create a map cache, the ArcGIS Server account writes the cache tiles into your server cache directory. Read and write files to the configuration store. Read and write files to the ArcGIS Server installation, location, and system temp directory. For example, the account writes log files that you can use to troubleshoot the server. Read and write log messages to the logs directory. Note, the ArcGIS Server account is not the same as the primary site administrator that you define when you create the ArcGIS Server site. The ArcGIS Server account defaults to the name ArcGIS. Accepting this default is sufficient for non-production deployments. However, for production systems, it is recommended that you create a domain or Active Directory account prior to installing ArcGIS Server. If your organization's security policy requires passwords to expire, you must run the configuration ArcGIS Server account utility to update the expired password. You are allowed to specify a local account or a domain account. You can export the setup configuration file when you install ArcGIS Server on the machine, and use the configuration file when you install ArcGIS Server on the other machines in your site. That way you guarantee that the ArcGIS Server account is configured the same on all the machines in your site. For this installation, I am going to use the ArcGIS name and select a password. Confirm the password and select Next. Export a copy of your account configuration details to a secure location on your drive by selecting Export Configuration File. This file should be placed in a properly secure directory, and choose Browse. For this installation, I have put them in my App Data folder. Select Next, and then choose Install. This process will take several minutes to complete. Once the installation has finished, select Finish. After you have selected Finish, this should open the authorization wizard. This is how we are going to authorize our ArcGIS server. The wizard provides 3 methods of authorization. Since we have downloaded our licenses, we are going to select the I have received an authorization file and I am now ready to finish the authorization process, and select Browse. I have created a license folder on my local C drive and put both my ArcGIS server license and my Portal for ArcGIS license in this folder. I recommend you doing the same. Select the ArcGIS server license and select Open. We're going to authorize with Esri, now using the internet. If your machine does not have internet access, then you will need to authorize at Esri's website or by email to receive your authorization file. Fill in all of the required information and select Next. Select your organization, your industry, and what best describes yourself, and select Next. Verify your authorization number and select Next. We're not installing any software extensions at this time, so we will keep the I do not want to authorize any extensions at this time, and select Next. You can come back at a later time and install any extensions you want. We have not installed Network Analyst, Data, Interoperability, or the Data Reviewer extensions, so we're going to leave these blank and select Next. This will authorize your software and select Finish. Now that your ArcGIS server application has been installed and authorized, you should be greeted with the ArcGIS Server Manager in your internet browser. We do not have an existing site to join, so we are going to be creating a new site. Select Create New Site. We need to create the primary site administrator account. This can be customized, but I recommend using Site Admin. Then select a password and select Next. You can choose the locations where you want to install your ArcGIS server site directories here. But for the purposes of this installation, I am not going to change the root server directory and configuration store directories and keep the default locations. Still, you can select the file directories that best fit your organization's needs, then select Next. Review your configuration summary and select Finish. This will take several minutes to complete. Once this has completed, you will be greeted with the ArcGIS Server Manager login. I prefer to test the administrator credentials and log in. Once this has been verified, sign out and exit your browser. Next, let's install the ArcGIS Data Store. Select the ArcGIS Data Store installation file in the Downloads folder. The ArcGIS Data Store is an application that allows you to configure data storage for the hosting server used with ArcGIS Enterprise deployments on Linux and Microsoft Windows. If you are not a data store expert, ArcGIS Data Store provides you with the convenient setup and configuration experience. We will keep all of the default file destinations in the default location as we did with the ArcGIS server installation. Still, you can choose the best folder location for your organizational needs. Select Next. Then select Close. This will open the ArcGIS Data Store installation wizard. Select Next, and select Next again. Select the I accept the master agreement, and select Next. I will keep the destination folder location, but you can choose the best folder location for your organizational needs, and select Next.
This is known as the ArcGIS server account. The ArcGIS server account is not the same as the primary site administrator that you define when you create the ArcGIS server site. The ArcGIS server account defaults to the name ArcGIS. Accepting this default is sufficient for most non-production deployments. However, for production systems, it is recommended that you create a domain or Active Directory account before installing ArcGIS server. You are allowed to specify a local account or a domain account if you export the setup configuration file when you installed ArcGIS server on the machine. You have the option to select that configuration file here. That way you guarantee that all ArcGIS server account is configured the same on all the machines on your site. For this installation, I will use the ArcGIS account and input my password. Confirm my password and select Next.
Export a copy of your account configuration details to a secure location on your local drive by selecting Export Configuration File. This file should be placed in a properly secured directory. Select Browse. For this installation, I have put them in my App Data folder. Select Next, and then select Install. This process will take several minutes to complete. Once your installation has completed, select Finish. This should open the ArcGIS Data Store window in your internet browser. Configure the ArcGIS Data Store with your ArcGIS server and administrator account and select Next. I will keep the default content directory location, but you can change this for your organizational needs and select Next. You have the option of selecting from 4 data store types. For this installation, you are going to select the relational type and the tile cache type configurations. Consider the amount of disk space and memory needed on the machine where you will create a data store prior to selecting a data store type. The relational type data stores can store data for thousands of hosted feature layers, which can take up several gigabytes of disk space. And the tile caches for 3D data can be multiple gigabytes or even terabytes, depending on the area included in the scene layer and the complexity of the data. Select Next.
Confirm that your data store configuration is completed correctly and select Finish.
Once the installation is completed, you will be asked to configure additional data stores.
Close this browser to complete this step. Open a new browser window and navigate to ArcGIS Server Manager and log in. Select Site at the top and then select Data Stores in the left Directories pane. Here, you will see your relational and tile cache data stores registered with your ArcGIS server. Validate both by selecting Validate All. Once the registered data stores have been validated, close the browser.
Next, we will install the portal for ArcGIS application. The ArcGIS Enterprise portal is a component of ArcGIS Enterprise that allows you to share maps, scenes, apps, and other geographic information with other people in your organization. The front-end portal is powered by the back-end infrastructure portal for ArcGIS. Let's get started. We're going to keep all of the default file destinations as we did with our previous installations, but you can change this for your organizational needs. Select Next. Then select Close. If your computer asks you if you want to allow this app to make changes to your device, select Yes. This will open the portal for ArcGIS installation wizard. Select Next, and Next again. Select the I accept the master agreement and select Next.
For the purposes of this installation, I'm going to keep the default destination folder location, but you can choose the destination folder that best fits your organizational needs. Select Next. Here you have the option to select the root location where Portal for ArcGIS stores content and logs. I'm going to keep the default location, but you can choose the destination folder that best fits your organizational needs. Select Next. This is known as the ArcGIS server account. The ArcGIS server account is not the same as the primary site administrator that you defined when you created the ArcGIS server site. The ArcGIS server account defaults to the name ArcGIS. Accepting this default is sufficient for most non-production deployments. However, for production systems, it is recommended that you create a domain or Active Directory account before installing ArcGIS server. You are allowed to specify a local account or a domain account. If you exported the setup configuration file when you installed ArcGIS server on the machine, you could select that configuration file here. That way you guarantee that the ArcGIS server account is configured the same on all the machines on your site. For this installation, I will use the ArcGIS account and input my password. Confirm my password and select Next.
Export a copy of your account configuration details to a secure location on your local drive by selecting Export Configuration File. This file should be placed in a properly secured directory and select Browse. For this installation, I have put them in my App Data folder. Select Next, and then select Install. This process will take several minutes to complete. Once your install has completed, select Finish. This should open Portal for ArcGIS window in your internet browser. We don't have an existing portal to join, so we will select the Create New Portal button. Then we will be asked to import our portal for ArcGIS license. Select Choose File. Like my license for ArcGIS server, I have put my portal for ArcGIS license in my license folder. Select your license and select Open. Then select Next. Next, you will be asked to create your administrator account. This can be customized, but I recommend using Portal Admin. Then select your password and select Next. Every subscription requires at least one foundational user type to activate and administer ArcGIS Online. The Creator and GIS Professional user types can be purchased independently or paired with any foundational or dependent user types. We will select the Creator type for this installation. Select Next. Then enter the additional account information and select Next.
Here you can choose the content directory where your ArcGIS Enterprise portal will store default and user-generated content. The content directory must be accessible from each machine in your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. For the purposes of this installation, I'm going to keep the default content directory location, but you can enter the content directory that best fits your organization needs. Then select Next.
Review the configuration summary and select Create. This will take several minutes to complete. Once your installation is completed, you will receive a confirmation that your initial administrator account has been created. Select OK. Next, you will be asked to install the ArcGIS Web Adapter. Close the browser. Let's install the ArcGIS Web Adapter. The ArcGIS Web Adapter is an application that runs in your existing website and forwards requests to your ArcGIS server machines. It pulls your site at a regular interval to identify which machines have been added or removed. It then forwards traffic to only the currently participating machines. The Web Adapter forwards requests to the machine hosting portal for ArcGIS. It is compatible with IIS and Java EE servers, such as WebSphere and WebLogic. We are going to keep all of the default file destinations as we did with our other installations, but you can change this for your organizational needs. Select Next. Then select Close. Select the I accept the master agreement and select Next. I will keep the default destination folder location, but you can change this to fit your organizational needs better and select Next. Name this instance of the Web ArcGIS web adapter that represents your ArcGIS REST service. In this case, let's name it Server and select Next. Then select Install. This installation will only take a couple minutes to complete. The ArcGIS web adapter will open in your internet browser. You will be asked which component you want to configure. Since we are installing the web adapter for ArcGIS Server, we'll select GIS, Image, Workflow Manager, GeoAnalytics, or Knowledge Server. Then select Next. Now you will need to configure the web adapter with your ArcGIS Server using the fully qualified domain name and an administrator account for your GIS server. Then select Configure. If you are successful in configuring your web adapter with your ArcGIS web adapter, you will receive confirmation as seen here. Next, you will need to install and configure the ArcGIS web adapter for Portal for ArcGIS. Open your File Explorer, select Documents, ArcGIS 10.9.1, and Web Adapter IIS. Right-click the Setup executable and select Run as Administrator. If your computer asks you if you want to allow this app to make changes to your device, select Yes. Select Next. Select Next. Select the I accept the master agreement and select Next. Keep the default destination folder location and select Next. Name this instance of the Web ArcGIS web adapter that represents your ArcGIS REST services. In this case, let's name it Portal and select Next. Then select Install. This installation will only take a couple minutes to complete. The ArcGIS web adapter will open in your internet browser. You will be asked which component you want to configure. Since we are installing the web adapter for Portal for ArcGIS, we'll select Portal for ArcGIS, then select Next. Now you will need to configure the web adapter with your Portal for ArcGIS using the fully qualified domain name and an administrator account for your GIS portal, then select Configure. If you are successful in configuring your web adapter with your ArcGIS web adapter, you'll receive confirmation as seen here.
Next, you will configure your Internal Information Services, IIS. IIS is a flexible, general-purpose web server for Microsoft that runs on your Windows operating system and is used to exchange static, dynamic web content with Internet users. IIS can be used to host, deploy, and manage web applications using technologies such as Portal for ArcGIS and ArcGIS Server. To complete this, you will need an SSL certificate. An SSL certificate is a digital certificate that authenticates the identity of a website and enables an encrypted connection. SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer. This is a security protocol that creates an encrypted link between a web server and a web browser. Typically, you can request an SSL certificate from your IT department. For the purposes of this installation, I use the Win-Acme client to issue my SSL certificate, which you can download from win-acme.com. But it is recommended that you get this from your organization's IT department. Let's begin your configuration of your IIS. Select the Start button on your toolbar and type IIS. This will populate your machine's Internet Information Services IIS Manager app. Select the machine name in the Connections pane to the left and then select Sites. Then select the default website. Select the Bindings link in the Actions pane on the right of the screen. I've already added a new binding for my installation, and I have my SSL certificate selected, but you can install a new binding by selecting the Add button shown here. By default, your SSL certificate will be defaulted to Not Selected. Once you have your SSL certificate, you will select the certificate in the drop-down. Change the port to 443, and for the purposes of this installation, I'm going to use star, as seen here, to allow anything through. This will need to be updated with a fully qualified host name, and select Close. In the right-hand action pane, choose Restart in the Manage Website drop-down. Now that we have installed and configured our ArcGIS components, configured our IIS, and applied our SSL certificate, you will need to configure your portal to use a reverse proxy server. A reverse proxy server is a computer that is deployed within a perimeter network, also known as a demilitarized zone, or screened subnet, that handles requests from the internet and forwards them to the machines in your internal network. The forwarding of requests on behalf of the reverse proxy server masks the identity of the machines behind your organization's firewall, thus protecting internal machines from being attacked directly by internet users. The portal's web context URL property helps it construct the correct URLs on all resources it sends to the end user. Set the web context URL property using your proxy URL. Once you have completed this, you can log out of your portal. Next, we must configure the ArcGIS server portal with our ArcGIS server. Federating an ArcGIS server site with your portal integrates the security and sharing models of your portal with one or more ArcGIS server sites. Note, to federate successfully, the ArcGIS server site must have direct network access to your portal over port 7443. A forward proxy cannot be configured to manage or direct network traffic between the server and portal. Log into Portal for ArcGIS using your administration account, Portal Admin. Select Settings and scroll down until you see Servers on the left side of the screen. Next, you will select the Add Server Site button on the right. Here, you will see that I have already done so. Fill in the services URL, which is the URL used by external users when accessing the server site, and the administration URL, which is the URL used for accessing the server site for administrative operations on the initial network. Then input your administrator credentials and select Next. Then validate your server. Once this is complete, you can log out of your portal. Lastly, you need to check and install any ArcGIS Enterprise updates and security patches. Select the Start button on your toolbar and select the ArcGIS folder. In the drop-down, select the Check for ArcGIS Enterprise Updates application. If your computer asks if you want to allow this app to make changes to your device, select Yes. This is a new installation. You will most likely see several available updates. At the bottom of the windows, select Install All Patches. This will take a while to complete your first time. If you do not have internet access, you will need to download each patch from Esri Support ArcGIS Technical Support and install them individually. If some of the patches fail, I rerun the ArcGIS Enterprise patch application and install any remaining patches. This usually resolves any issues. After I have completed my patches installations, I recommend restarting the services and testing the connections and validating your data stores and your servers. Check for ArcGIS Enterprise updates and security patches should be done in a monthly cadence to ensure that your enterprise is secure and running at top performance. That completes the stand-up of our ArcGIS Enterprise single machine deployment. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and be sure to subscribe to our GeoMarvel channel for more great content. Thank you for watching.